Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable, ongoing reality. Well, good evening and welcome to Transition Radio Show, Real Talk with the Cummings. My name is Mark Angelo.
And I'm Lynna, and we wanted to welcome you to our show tonight. We have a special show where we have a couple today. Yeah. So it's going to be great. We're going to do a little intro bio on this person at first, though.
Yes. And here we go. Today we have Jocelyn, and Rock was born in 1963. He's a year older than I am, has 3 children and 2 grandkids, and is a 4th generation alumni. Rock has an associate degree in architectural drafting and a bachelor's degree in psychology with a master level registered addiction specialist.
Rock asked his wife to marry him only 2 weeks after they met in 2015. Oh, that's the same time we got married.
I know.
He is 23 years sober and currently supports others who are seeking recovery.
And welcome to the show, Rock and his lovely wife, right?
Sha.
Thank you. Very nice to be here. And my lovely wife, Sha, thank you for hosting us both.
Thank you.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for coming on.
So you guys were married around the same time that we were married. We got married July of 2015.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's when you landed.
That's when we met.
In July
2015. Yep.
Wow.
In just 2 weeks.
And got married 2 weeks later. Wow. That was
I asked her to marry me 2 weeks later. We'd been friends for a couple of years on through Facebooking. And she said, well, I have a break, an unusual break from nursing, and I'd like to see America. Can I stay at your place for a night while I get my bearings? And I said, yeah, sure. Come on out. And when she got off the plane, I said, oh, my God.
Your heart stopped.
You're like, that's my future wife right there.
Absolutely. And her voice just sealed the deal.
Yep.
So Facebook, that's how we met, through Facebook as well. Facebook didn't know it was a matchmaker.
Right?
Oh, really? Yeah. How'd you two meet?
We were married 6 months after we met.
Yeah, we got married 6 months after. We met on Facebook. Somebody had mentioned her to me, so I started looking her up on Facebook. Then I started chatting her up, and the rest is history. I mean, yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on hanging in there, and keeping it going.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you too.
You too. Yeah. Going on 8 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah. 8 years.
Imagine, huh?
Yeah.
So Rock, take us back to childhood. What kind of childhood did you have?
Well, I guess you have to be a place of reference. So being born in Rhode Island, the smallest state, right? That period of time, a lot of industry, Quonset Point, shipyards, factories. If you were lucky enough as a guy to get a job in a factory, then you kind of were set for life and you stayed in that job for life. Well, my dad went to the high school prom with my mom and left with a present, which was me. I am a prom present.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, he had gone across country with his friends, graduated from high school. He was coming back to college. Life was going to be great. And then he's like, nope, you're going to get a job in a factory and you're going to get married. So that's 1963, right? If you had intimacy with someone, and my father actually, that was his first intimate experience with someone. So there's accountability with exchange, and sometimes it's a 20-year deal. So we lived in a trail. Well, originally we lived in a house by the water that was my great grandparents that had no heat in it. So that was only good for a few months. And then we moved to a trailer park near where my father worked at a company called Brown and Sharp Manufacturing. And so I lived there for 5 years, and it was a good experience. Some life experiences happened. I was actually taken by somebody across the river and experienced things a 5-year-old kid shouldn't see. So I felt different after that. In that generation, people didn't talk or process. You waited till the adults told you what was going on, and then you just, did the chores and things you were supposed to do. A lot of supposed tos, right? Everyone was expected to have certain things at different ages. You went to college or you got married. Girls were teachers, librarians. These were the options, pretty much, or a secretary. That was a glamorous position, right? Back
Right.
then, you took the bus in, you were autonomous, you were independent. The 70s roll around. I mean, you still need to be married or to be under a man for a credit card. So, there wasn't a lot of empowerment of women or girls. And I wasn't aware of any of this because I was busy playing sports and manhunt and building forts with all the boys in my neighborhood when I moved to Coventry. So I was there from 6 to 14. And I played in the American Little League when I was 12. And some other girl had fought for that right and that privilege. Again, I was oblivious. I was just playing sports with my friends. I didn't, in some ways, it was obvious, but there weren't a lot of girls who played sports, really.
Yeah.
Not back then. Women were not encouraged for sports or college to a great degree. I think it started changing in the 70s with the women's liberation movement and, awareness of how much disparity there was between men and women. What was it, 60 cents on the dollar, I think, was what you were expected to have the
Yeah.
best outcome. So when I had relocated at 14 to Riverside, I was going to go out for the boys' junior high baseball team. And I didn't know it was a big deal until I'm the new kid and the one everyone's asking, "Are you the girl who's going out for the boys' baseball team?" I'm like, "Oh my God, like I don't even know these people. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing?" Teachers were asking me. I'm like, "Oh shit, I think I went too far." Right? So, there's social repercussions for being
Yeah,
who you are, especially when you're not cut from the same bolt as everyone else, right?
definitely. So then, what kind of clued you in that you were different from other females at the time?
Well, when I was 5, I had a mad crush on Elizabeth Montgomery on Bewitched.
Oh.
I thought she was the epitome of the ultimate woman. I mean, she was smart. She was loyal to her husband. She did cocktail parties for him. And she also took no shit because when he crossed the boundary, she was like, "Oh, no, no, no." I was like, "Yes, that's who I want to marry." So, you're not supposed to be like that or think things like that. But, I didn't reveal a lot of my internal processes because I realized I thought a lot more in general about a lot more things than maybe your average bear would. And sometimes my friends would joke, "Why do you gotta think so deep all the time? Why do you got?" I'm curious. I'm curious. I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. I
Yeah.
want to enjoy my life. I want to enjoy what I do. life will hand all of us suffering along the way. That's just part of the package of being alive. So I'm here to experience, right? Like,
Right.
what else can I do? And to bump into pushback um, from someone telling you you can't be who you are. Back then, I was not as relaxed as I am today.
Yeah.
We'll say I was very verbal. I spoke very fast to make sure I got my point out and across because, back then, as my son says, back in the day, I had long blonde hair, similar to your partner, your wife, your love of your life,
Yeah.
right? Just about that length, 36C chest. No, what is happening? Like, right? How is that for a big, this is not happening reality? How can I accept this reality?
Mm.
And the friends I had were awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I ran with a pack of about 15 of us, and we still meet up. We're talking junior high school, we were hanging out.
Wow.
And we were every single one of us was very quirky and unique in our own way, which just made us phenomenal together as a group, right? So, I mean, we were reenacting Monty Python and Saturday Night Live with Gilda Rodner and going to concerts together and experiencing altered states of reality through various forms.
I see.
Good times, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my God, the 70s, everyone had vans. How cool was that?
I know,
And
right?
it was
Right?
smoky.
A party on wheels, like, oh, and
Yeah.
freedom. Not always good to give
Yeah.
a teenager, but it
Yeah.
was a good time. When I went to high school, my father had wanted me to go to Bayview, which was an all-girls school. And that was a huge psychological battle for me. You had to wear a skirt. None of my friends had ever even seen me in a skirt, never mind, required for school wear. So I hung it in my locker and I wore my jeans in and I changed into the skirt. And then when I went home, I hung it back up. You know, I guess they call it on the down low nowadays, right? Where it
Yeah,
wasn't so,
right.
right? Like you feel as if I bring my authentic self, I'm going to get consequences, especially when they tell you there's going to be consequences if you don't wear the uniform. You can't go here.
Mm.
And now I'm around a ton of girls who I don't relate to.
Oh,
I don't get it. I don't get it for clothes. I don't get it for accessorizing. I don't get it for competing for boys. I don't get it for cheerleading. Although I met some of the most beautiful women, well, they were girls at the time, who were cheerleaders and track runners, and they, all came from different backgrounds and cultures. And I guess they were my first opportunity to build a relationship with another female on a ground of mutual respect,
Gotcha.
right? I'm trying to sort them out in their world. Like, right, the dude alien in the all girls school, like, I never looked at girls in the locker room because I was afraid to be caught looking.
Wow. Yeah.
wow.
So I cast my eye into the corner on the floor because I wanted to respect their privacy. It was very important to me. And to this day, it still is to honor and respect all individual spaces. However, I do, pay attention and guard the space of women around me. I feel like if I see something that's unacceptable and I don't say something, I'm a co-contributor,
There you go.
Mhm.
and that, my parents and family and people around me. I mean, I'm already bizarre to everyone who knows me. In a good way these days, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? If we survive our teenage years and, when I got out on my own and got together with someone who I met at a bakery. Well, I was looking for a job. I went to see how many jobs I could get in a day while my friend waited for concert tickets. And I met my son's future father.
Hmm.
I mean, my life has had some really, really unique twists and turns. And he was the first person I had met who had a more impactful childhood in some scary and uncomfortable ways, we'll say, than I had ever met. And something just made me trust him. He was as damaged and broken as I was at that time. You know, I didn't know how to be the girl the world wanted when I was still trying to sort out who I was and what did that mean. You know, I really struggled with the supposed is. Now for my grandfather, I kept my hair long. For my grandfather, I wore a dress on his 50th wedding anniversary. I mean, yeah, 50th wedding anniversary. And today I look back and I say, wow, I felt like I was in drag.
Mhm.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
I felt like I was in drag. You know, my wife would give anything to see me in a dress once, and I'll do it. It's not this Halloween, and I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be a charity fundraiser or something. I don't know yet. It would take me months to psychologically adjust to that. And
Yeah.
there's a part of me that kind of aches. I want to see. You know, I spent what was it? 18 years as a female, 22 years as a male.
Mhm.
And as a female, it wasn't safe for me to be a female. I didn't want the sexual attention from cisgendered individuals. I hadn't learned to negotiate emotions within a relationship like I did with women and the man I eventually married. Great guy, amazing, loving man to me. And when that still wasn't enough, I knew I was going to have to experience women. And he actually helped review the women who called and left voice messages, which was what you did back in the day. You had a box number and he said, I'd rather let you go and see you happy than have you stay with me and know you're just doing okay. And I love him. He's still in my life to this day.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We were all at my daughter's wedding together.
Mhm.
Child number 2.
Wow.
And what do you mean? You know what? I think I may have a problem with drinking at this point because when I'm drinking, I'm making decisions I may or may not remember, but I'm sure getting consequences that don't change.
Mhm.
A lot of transitions. Try being transgender and pregnant before it was even a concept. You know, we had the first person this and the first person that on radio and TV. That's like so old and outdated. There's people generations before me who've done this. They just didn't
Exactly.
know they weren't alone.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really amazing how fast forward things have changed dramatically, for us all. But right now we're facing a really uncertain type of things that are happening right now, and I think it'll be a passing thing. But yeah, during take us back to that time. So here you are, married, pregnant, and you're like, this is not me. I've got to do something here. How did you like get out of that situation and transition? How did that go for you?
Well, first I had the 2 children, then I got married. So
Okay.
I'm not someone who prescribed to society and asked what I was supposed to do and then did it. I did whatever my truth in my heart was at the time. And I've paid a huge price for that. Yet I'm grateful. And I believe wholeheartedly I made the right. I don't regret being me. I would regret sabotaging me. And I think because the drinking and the drugging to numb the pain or to get through the suffering, no one knows what it's like. No one these are the things I'm saying to myself, and I told my counselor, I'm holding my 2-month-old daughter and I said, I think I'm a lesbian. I said, but I can't because I have kids. So, right? Because throughout history, you lost your lesbian card. If you had a kid, well, you were with a guy. There was societal, even within the culture, within the subculture, right? Huge and heavy
Yeah.
prices for every choice and decision. And I think that narrowness of mind is what costs us the most. More so, if we can't love each other uniquely as we are, where we are, how can we expect anyone on the outside of our subculture to have a shot, right? And so if I want society fixed, I better be willing to work on the contributor to society, which is me, right?
Exactly.
I contribute my malfunction and I contribute my health, depending on whatever I'm spending my time doing, I guess, right?
Right. Definitely.
So, did you have siblings, and how was your relationship with your own parents growing up? Did that contribute to any of the feelings that you had? Did they welcome your differences? How can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, you know, my I think my mom describes it the best. She says I'm the same book with a different cover. And that's true because if you talk to my wife has interviewed everyone in my past life because she is desperate to know Diana, right? I
Yeah.
was born Diana, goddess of the moon and goddess of the hunt, and I embraced that too, right? I was like, how powerful. I've always wanted to be a person with power. In my 20s, I didn't necessarily use it for good choices, but so
Mm.
I think because my parents watched me push out into the world in a different way, as long as I didn't harm someone else or myself, they supported me. They didn't understand necessarily. We didn't have a language yet, right? There's no such thing as transgender before someone says the word.
Mhm.
I'm the only girl in the entire league that I'm playing in. There's no one like me. I have no one to talk to. So I just, like every other human, I'm winging it, right? Doing the best I can with what I've got. And when I told my mother at first, she said, well, I came out as a lesbian first. She said, I think you're doing this for attention. I said, yes, mom. I couldn't be born of color, so I picked the second most persecuted. People,
Yeah.
because I think parents by default will say, what did I say or what did I not say? What did I do? What did I not do? And we're
Mhm.
robbing the individual of their individuality when we do that. So thankfully, my parents have rolled with me. I mean, the man I ended up marrying at my grandmother's funeral, I introduced him as my fiance 2 weeks after having met him.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, my parent, what did Sue used to say? Shock and awe. Okay.
Mhm.
And all I was doing was living my truth. And because I did that, I think I've had a graced life in some ways. I've had a lot of struggles, unique situations that uh, most people, I'll guarantee you, never run into. I was assaulted 4 years ago by my stepfather,
Mhm.
and the police were involved, and he died in jail. So, is that the end of my story? Absolutely not. But it is a part of my story. I'm a conglomeration of chapters, would be the best way to say that. Sometimes it's period of time, sometimes it's event. I'm always in transition. I've never stopped transitioning. I'll never stop transitioning. You know, who knows what I'll look like in a dress? I mean, you know what I mean? But maybe I'll get there. I want to. I want to see what I'm missing. I want to see what I was afraid of. I want to see what wasn't okay with me. I want to be okay with all of me.
Mhm.
There you
How
go.
can I ask someone else to do that if I can't?
That's a good point.
Right?
Mm. Mhm. Mm.
I'm sorry. I just realized I'm like hogging up your whole show here. I'm like,
No,
I
no,
don't,
No,
that's no,
this is
that's good. This is
great.
great.
you know.
So then you had the kids, and now you're like, okay, I'm not really happy with the man in my life, or the situation you had. So how did you move forward?
So I posted an ad in the Phoenix newspaper back in the day. That's how you look for other lesbians and other women, right? And that same week, I went to this place called Club Babyhead where I met my future husband over a pool table. And so when he got together with me, I told him, we were friends initially. We just flowed so smoothly. It's like we'd known each other our whole lives, like a brother from another mother on some level. And I would talk to him very candidly and honestly. I'd say, I've always been drawn to women, but I can't be. And then I'd come out with a list. And that list was a lot of societal expectations, but it was my list too, because I was following it. And after we'd been together, I don't know, 4, maybe 5 years, and he's saying, you really need to date to find out if you're even attracted to women. Like, you don't know until you go there. And so I went to this club called the Villes. There were a bunch of sober people who would attend on a particular night of the week, sober women. So I went with them and I had a blast. And I went to the pool table and this girl shooting pool. We had a great time. And she says, I'd like to see you again. I said, well, I got to talk to my husband about that first. So I, so I go home. I tell him everything that's happened. He goes, well, did you have fun? I said, I had a blast. It was awesome. He goes, well, go back, go back,
Yeah.
go back. And then when I told my father, because, shortly thereafter, I encountered the first girl who became my first girlfriend. I told my father about it. He goes, I'll tell you what, love one, love the other, but pick.
Mm.
Even if they both agree, it's not fair to keep them both along because one person will not be getting 100% of you. They'll both be getting half. You need to pick, which I did not expect for the answer at my coming out experience and encounter and talking. I thought I
Yeah.
was going to get serious pushback, questioning what have you. He's just he raised the bar on my moral ethics is what he did.
Yeah.
He challenged me not to be selfish. And so in the end, after, we decided to part ways because at that time we had the 2 children that my daughter was 3 when we got together. And my son at the time was 10 and he was, 15 and 8 when he left. So they stayed in his life for the rest of their life and are still in his life to this day. They still see each other. We saw all each other at my daughter's wedding, and I've never unloved somebody in my life. So I don't throw away people to become a different version of me. I let that relationship form a different version of me. Who I keep in my inner world is going to change my inner world. So I have to be authentic. And I had a couple of relationships, and there was this girl from California. And I had 2 years of sobriety at the time, fighting for custody of my daughter, who needed to be at the age of 11 of consent. No job yet, because I went to California 1 week, 5 months in a row, check everything out, make sure, because, it's not just me, it's a family I'm bringing with me, and I'm changing their relationships with their grandparents and access to, my mom and other uncles and cousins. You know, when I make decisions, the ripple is all the way through the family. I can't be selfish and just jump and do the things I want to do spontaneously. I really have to think how my behavior is going to affect the people around me. And by living within that code, I think as I've come to know myself in different aspects better, I don't have I don't have regrets. I've been mistreated for who I am and have been. I've been um, hated for who I am and who I've been. And I have been deeply, deeply loved for who I am as I am. And I'm very, very blessed in that arena. There are a lot more not me's than me's. Knowing that I was different when I was younger hasn't changed. I'm just different in different ways today. My gender and my sex I've come to understand as being something different. Intimacy is different to me I'm going to be 60 in March. Intimacy today is very different than when I was 23.
Mm.
If you didn't hurt me, then you were good for me in my 20s. If you could get along with me and we could communicate, we did great in my 30s. If you can be honest with me and I can be honest with me, we'll do really well in my 40s. And if I can ask for the opinions of a lot more people in my 50s, I'll definitely be happier. I missed a lot of life by being walled up, and I didn't get to know me through relationships. I kept my circle very, very close and tight. Thank God I got into recovery. I'm so grateful that I stopped wasting my life and putting those who love me in fear and in pain, not knowing what was going to come next, because then that transition made me who I am today, more than any hormone, more than any surgery, more than any wedding, more than anything. I'm learning who I am still. I'm still in transition.
Right. True.
Uh,
Yeah.
Mm.
uh, well, Shaw's known me 7 years. How have you seen me change?
Mm. I've seen him change a lot actually, like with each year, you know, even as the kids grow up around us as well, he changes,
Mm,
our role changes to the people we are surrounded with. Like we have different pockets of people. We have our, family, we have our recovery people, so I guess as each one of us grows and changes, you change too,
uh,
along the way. Yeah. Yeah.
and I mean, her family has been like I've been there all along. Like so I got to meet her whole family in one fell swoop at a wedding.
Wow.
And we had spent 6 months trialing the house thing, living together out in Australia while she finished her degree. And she invited me to go to her cousin's wedding, and I was going to meet all the aunties and cousins, extended family.
Yeah.
And they were awesome. They were awesome. And you know what was so interesting? Her parents pray to whomever they pray for, and they might have a different version of what that looks like, but we surely know they both pray for both of us,
Mm.
right? With authenticity and an open heart and a love. Like, how awesome is that? Who cares whoever someone prays for? Just think good, loving thoughts about someone. Like,
Yeah.
this has been an amazing adventure from knowing someone 2 weeks.
Right.
Well, I didn't know you 2 weeks.
We
We
knew
knew
each
each other
other for a
like two
while.
years, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't talk until you landed.
No,
Then we
no.
couldn't stop talking.
Hmm.
Like literally, my mom would be like, it's 6 a.m. Can you guys like get some sleep? You're gonna need to function. We were so desperate for time with each other because it was like lock and key fit.
Wow.
Lock and key fit, huh?
Right. Yeah. Mhm.
That's
Mm,
just a beautiful story that you have
thank you.
together, and that you're just so meshed. You could just tell, online here, we could just see the love emanating from you two, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful to see. Yeah.
So tell us how you guys met.
She found me. Share the
Uh,
story. We had a mutual friend,
we
wasn't it?
had a
When
mutual
yeah.
friend through Facebook actually, and he popped up on, like you might be
Oh, people
interested
you
in
may
people
know.
you may know, or
Yeah.
you might be interested in making this your friend kind of thing.
Mm.
So I remember looking at your profile and thinking, oh wow, like, I was with someone at that time, he was with someone at that time. So it was like a pure, like, friendship thing, and I loved how he wrote on his page. He was very spiritual, and I needed a lot of that at that time. And I thought, oh my God, I'd love to just look at your page from time to time and see what you have to say. Would you be interested in being a friend on Facebook? That's how it started. Yeah.
And then we'd like each other's posts, not
Or
anything.
comment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
comments once in a while. When was the first time? Oh, I was in Baltimore with this long-term friend of mine, Kip, because I hadn't Zoomed or anything yet, and she hadn't either. She's like, "Would you be opening?"
Skype, right?
Oh, Skype. Would you be open to Skype? I said, "Well, no, I don't do technology. And, I haven't done Skype before, and I'd have to install it." And she's like, "Well, I'll do that too. We could talk." And I'm talking to Kevin. I'm like, "Do you want to talk to this girl from Australia? She, friended me on Facebook." He's like, "Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Let me get the dog. I'll put him on the bed." And we were sitting on the top of the covers, playing with the dog. So we turned the Skype on, and we had,
Yeah, I
about
remember
a
that.
15, 20-minute conversation. And then a year later,
I think we had another couple of conversations
on Skype.
In between. From
No.
Australia, remember?
No, once you landed. Really?
There was a few.
You sure?
One or two. Not many, but there were a few.
Well, I'll tell you what. After she came out, all right, I would come home from my pizza job, waiting for her to get off of school so she could jam home. 12-hour difference, 2-country difference across the globe. And she'd say, "Just point the laptop at your face." I'm like, "I'm so tired." She's like, "I'm just going to study. I just want to look at you while you sleep."
And he would fall asleep because he was so tired, Yeah. And I'd just leave him there the whole time.
Oh,
Mhm.
That's beautiful. So let's back up a little bit. When you transition, and I'm sure that there was hardly no information back
I
in the
didn't know
day.
anyone.
How did you come about? How did you
Well,
figure?
when I landed in California, the girl I was with at the time, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I like really only own men's suits. And she's like, "You're going to be okay. You're in the Bay Area of San Francisco." I'm like, "I don't know what that means, but I know I helped a lot of people adjust to work, and I don't know what it's going to be like here." She's like, "There's a huge LGBT community, or LGNL as it was known back then, predominantly, community out here." I'm like, "Yeah, but at work?" She's like, "Yeah, you're going to be, you'll be all right at work." And they just met me again. I was met where I was at. And at the time, I've always wanted to be shirtless, but I would go out with a sports bra and go to the flea market. Like I didn't sexualize myself, so it didn't occur in my brain, or I even didn't care. If someone had, I wanted to be free, shirtless and free under the sun. That was my number one priority. I mean, I did it all backwards. I mean, I did the chest first, and then I did the hysterectomy, and then I did the hormones because I had a lot of research to do. I went to a Rainbow Community Center the first time I went looking for support. I think that was in 2002. Yeah, 2002, 2003. And when I went, there were people who identified as cross dressing. They were elder gentlemen who liked to wear women's clothing, and another couple who were there because she thought her boyfriend might be interested in that. And when I told them who and what I was, they told me I needed to find another place that wasn't quite the group they had in mind and the people they were meeting. And I found a couple other groups. One I had researched, and my partner at the time knew her, and she had a habit of fetishizing and hunting for drag kings. And so I said, "Well, I'm not interested. Whatever intimacy I have is going to be between me and the person I'm with. I'm not about that kind of currency at this time." And so when I had done my chest, I went with Dr. Bronstein. He was the only person I was aware of in the country who did chest surgeries. He's trained his replacements. and I had to pay $7,000 out of pocket because they didn't take you in the hospital. There was no health insurance, and you went to a surgical center. And I land at 5 a.m. and I'm rolled out by 11 a.m. in the back of a taxi. It just aftercare was tricky. You're doing your own drains. There was not a lot of material, and
What year was this?
2002, 2003.
That's I transitioned 2003. That's when I had my surgeries in December of 2003.
Yeah, I did mine. Well, I wanted to be shirtless and free. I didn't know I had to wear a compression vest for 6 months. I mean, that's and the silicone stocks and how to hunt for those and look for women
Yeah.
who had mastectomies and cut those up and use those on my scars and do the drains. And my partner at the time, she was like, "Why do you need to remove your breast?" I said, "I want to walk free under the sun." She's like, "Well, just continue to be the man you are." I said, "No, she goes, "If a guy has large chest tissue, is he still not a man?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." She goes, "If a guy's paralyzed from the waist down and that doesn't function, is he still a man?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Why do you need to surgically alter yourself?" And to be fair, when I had gotten together with her, um, the concept of transition was something I'd been debating, and I'd already legally changed my name in '99. So I changed my name here in Rhode Island because I wasn't trying to escape and start a new reality. I was trying to live my reality within the world I was in. That was critical for me, that I not jump to avoid whatever was coming. And I also had to realize it took me time to transition. So I ought to give the grace to people in my life to have their time to transition to my transition. It's only fair. It took me how many years to figure it out for myself? And I want them to be,
Sure.
he and him in 3 weeks. Come on now.
Mhm.
So when I had done the chest, it was my grandson was when I did the second chest, he was 6 months old and he is now 14.
Wow.
And I remember going in the public pool and I wore a t-shirt initially for quite a while. I was really afraid of the reactions I would get from people. And in my whole life, there's only one person who ever asked me. I was shirtless going to the laundry in California, and he said, "How did he?" I forget the phrase. He said, "Oh, did you?" He said, "Did you have an operation? Because you have an accident, or did you have an operation?" I said, "Oh, I had two growths removed," and that was it. I hadn't forethought of it. I didn't know what I was on the fly. There was no handbook for people when they
Yeah.
transition. Which is why it was important for me to not join any groups in that area at that time. I didn't want someone else giving me a list of expectations of what it meant to be man enough or not man enough or what have you. The idea of support takes empathy and that takes understanding. And there weren't a lot of people who understood me, but they sure did love me. I mean, I was working at two different companies at the time. One was called Arc Inroads. I was the program coordinator, and I ran two divisions for adults that had developmental disabilities. And the second job, I was a drug and alcohol counselor. And both companies said, "We love you. We want you here. How can we help support you through your transition?" And this is in the Bay Area, and they had never had someone gender variant in their employment. So they had nothing in HR or policy to go about. And they just asked me what I preferred. So I gave them a list of terminologies. And I said, "Please pass these out to your managers and tell anyone who'd like to ask me any question at any time that my door is open. Whether it's an employee, a parent of a consumer, a vendor, it doesn't matter." And if someone says she, and they say, "Oh, I thought, Rock was a girl," and you could say a lot of people have had that perception. Rock's a he. And that's it. That's it. I was very uniquely supported than the average person who transitions. Um, and I think in part because I haven't assigned anyone responsibility for the cause or creation of my transition or becoming what I am. I'm not ascribing blame or expectation to anyone else. No one else is responsible for my choices. You couldn't have talked me out of having a crush on Elizabeth Montgomery when I was 5, just like you couldn't have convinced me to not leave that awesome marriage to that amazing man to find out if this is who I really was. There's going to be a price paid. I'd rather pay the price for being who I am than not, than be someone I'm not. That's the truth.
Mm.
Yeah, that speaks to me a lot because I was married and I have children from another marriage, and
Nice.
unfortunately I haven't been able to have the positive outcomes that you have been able to experience. But it, it's something that you do realize that these choices are yours and that you make them because you want to be able to be who you are as a person, and not that you would literally change your sex, because nobody can literally do that at this point in time in history. But we do as best as we can to get along in this life and do whatever we have to do in order to make ourselves comfortable to live in this life.
I like
know,
what you said. I like
what
what
I
you said regarding taking responsibility, because nowadays people don't want to take responsibility and they want to force people. And I think that's the difference between those of us that transitioned back in 2003 and earlier than a lot of the people that are transitioning now. They're trying to force people to see them. And it's like forcing someone never solves anything. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a quiet desperation for all of us to be seen. And I think that a lot of us have tried to talk our way into understanding when the truth is we need to listen to our listen as our way of understanding one another. I mean, I have found myself catching myself in narrow-mindedness or prejudging someone because of something. And I have to remind myself that I short us both with that. I have some friends who are strongly in one political party, vastly, vehemently opposed to members of the other party. I love people from probably every party. And, even those who don't party now. If I want to see this world change, I must be that example. How can I ask someone else to understand surviving hatred and coming out the side and being okay? It's messy. It's messy. It's bloody. It's raw. When I was attacked and raped by my stepfather and stabbed with something between the legs that I still to this day have no idea what it was. I had been married a year. I'm saying to myself, "Oh my God, what does this mean? How do I even relate to her ever again?" It was a journey. And only because I took the fear and said it out loud, and I took what I was afraid of happening and I said it out loud, and I confessed to her where I struggled, and I confessed to her the insecurities. We could communicate our way into building that back. Now, before I had this captivating woman by my side, it was a very much different experience. I felt inherently lonely in a room full of people who loved me. And that is like, I think we're all suffering under or with something. I haven't met a person yet who said, "You know what? I just got it all. I'm all set. I don't need one more thing." You know, Probably because they were smart and gave it all away, right? Every act of kindness I do for someone, no one can take from me.
Exactly.
Every person I have patience for cannot look back and felt that I judged them. So I have to keep working at my own limitations and catching me, wanting to change something about someone else, and it's not my place. I have no control. The president doesn't call me and ask how to run his day. I have no authority, right? I'd make a terrible president. I really would. I know I'm better off in some ways not being in charge, because every time I try to think I can fix things, it means I've stopped listening. I have I have people in my family who are in the military, people who are in the police. I have people who are of different persuasions, different marriage, different LGBTQAI plus. Yeah, we got a plus. Well, I mean, we are just, we're the world. And so if I want the world to be good outside, I got to be good to this world, inside my house, inside my heart, inside my car, inside the grocery store. Like, let me hold the door open for you. Yes, of course you can cut ahead. Yeah, I'll throw some extra money for you. You're short on your gas. What have you? I'm only here once. Let me leave something good behind. Then what can I get? I've never heard anyone who goes for what they can get ever being satiated. No one's ever had enough money. No one's ever had enough power. No one's ever had enough attention. I mean, it's like this endless vortex that can't be filled. But every time I give my time and attention to someone, known or unknown, I have peace. I have peace. And that is the priceless gift. And now how do I use that peace? All I've got is my time. That's it. It just when you announced I had 23 years, I did as of when we wrote that October 26th. I now have 24, right?
Years.
24 years sober,
Right.
and I don't look back and say, "My God, I wish I'd gotten drunk these past 24 years. I wish I had a needle in my arm. I wish I were running away from the pain and suffering." But it's scary to take the risk and say, "I'm suffering. I'm confused. I'm lost. I don't understand." And not to be judged in that state. I think as someone who's in the LGBTQAI plus community, I have a responsibility to role model. How can I ask them to do anything that I'm not willing to do first?
Sure.
Well,
So, Rock, how did it go when, like, did you have to like let her know that you were trans? Did Sean know that you were trans before?
I
Like,
did. I
yeah,
identify as queer, so we were in similar circles on Facebook. So
okay,
I knew, yeah. He
it
was the not the first trans person that I've been with, so that made it easier, but still um more captivating in a sense because I love him so much that I want to know all parts of him. So his other life as Diana
yeah.
is very elusive to me right now. So sometimes wish that I could throw myself back to those years and be a fly on the wall.
I would love to be a fly on the wall for this person when they were Maritza at the time,
Mhm.
and what that would have been like to know that person because the personalities, they're still the same person, but it's different in the sense of where they were before. But I think it's that integrating that is so healing, and I think with what we've been through in our past like 7 years, he did transition a few times,
Yeah.
and I did transition twice, and we were just trying to integrate those people into who we are today. And I think that is a powerful thing, is that recognizing the beautiful person that Diana was, recognizing the beautiful person that Paul was, recognizing the beautiful person that Maritza was, and Mark was. So I mean, I think it's just so important for us to be able to make that full circle.
You could
I
have quite a party with all the different characters,
Yeah,
you
Right?
know?
everybody's
And to embrace that. Like sometimes I'll catch him in a moment with the grandkids and I'll go, "Oh, that's you as as the grandmother. That's Diana." Like I can see that something grandmotherly about what he just did, and I'll point it out to him because I don't want him to forget that he has all those parts,
It's
yeah.
and that
beautiful.
that we feel it. They may not understand it as children, but I can definitely see it, and I love that.
Yeah.
Mm.
What do you think about that, Rock?
Wow. I mean, I remember when Anna, our granddaughter, had said, Papa was born a girl. And our other grandchild said, "No." And you know, it's interesting to watch. What's that say?
Uh, it's the last few years were rough. More power to all that were brave enough to question. So now we truly know the individuality is it.
That is absolutely true. Individuality is the key. You
Yeah.
know, in embracing who we have found other aspects of ourselves we could not have seen. Right? When Shaw asked my high school friends, "What was Diana like?" And they were like, "Oh my god, way more masculine than Rock. Way more, like, aggressive, way like this feel good, lovey-dovey shit would not have flown. Not a shot."
I know that's makes it even more, like interesting because apparently, he was very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I asked Mark's sister the same question, and she was like, "Oh, he was way more out of control, crazy,
Yes.
you know."
I think we had to do that, Rock, to like, protect ourselves. I think it
Yeah,
was like a protective mechanism. And it was like, my father would say, I trust you to have my back over any man because I was tough. I
yeah,
would like beat up on I wasn't scared of anything. I've had
Still isn't actually.
guns pointed at my face. I'm like, you better shoot that or I'm going to take it away from you. And, it's like,
mhm.
and I had no fear whatsoever.
Mhm.
I'm still pretty, but like the way I was before. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, when you feel like you have nothing left to lose,
exactly.
right? If I can't be me, then what's the point?
Hmm.
Right? So then I have nothing left to lose if I can't be me. And I think one of the things that time gives us the knowledge and awareness is that there are many versions of me. There's 10-year-old me, there's 40-year-old me, there's 20-year-olds, hopefully someday 70-year-old me. And he's probably looking at his head, at me now saying, all the dress shows we put on and fundraisers we did, and you didn't think we could do it. And I'm like, I hear you, old man, but I'm not there yet. Right? Like, we
Yeah.
Yeah.
all, our awareness changes, our empathy changes. Once you get ground down in so many ways, you have no place left to go but up.
Yeah.
You have no place to go. I mean, look how hard you fought to get to where you are. Look how far the both of you fought to get to where you are. It's,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of work, a lot of tears, a lot of struggle, right? A
Mhm.
lot of nobody knows what I'm going through. It's really difficult, especially when you're in the rainbow community.
Yeah.
Before the internet, good luck. I mean, I used to go to GNL on AOL, and that was a chat room. And I traveled across the country, and we called ourselves roomies, and met all around the globe. This is, I didn't even have a daughter yet, so
Mhm.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
That
how I
changed.
found other gay and lesbian people. And you had screen names, so you didn't reveal each other's lives. It was very different. We were all in isolated pockets, so
Oh yeah.
how do I navigate custody? How do I navigate a locker room? How do I navigate dating?
Mhm.
How do I navigate my body with somebody when I'm not sure what I'm navigating here yet? I'm kind of navigating me, so you navigating me is, we'll get there, but
Yeah.
hold on here. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. And, especially if you've been abused, there's so many things to work through because I was abused as
Yeah,
well for 4 years of my life.
sorry to
And
hear that.
there's a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's something that, I think it's made me stronger, because I've never been much of a victim mentality type of person. I think it's, you learn to deal with things and it makes you stronger. And then you kind of desensitize a little bit, it's kind of like, you don't think about it much, but it builds a character, builds this defense mechanism. And I think that's where that, really rough and tough,
Yeah,
Mm.
persona comes out of. But
sure.
we're not given a manual. You know, we come to this world, we don't know what to do. We do the best that we can.
Yeah.
Right now, the way the world looks, it's like it's a little troublesome. I don't know if it's the internet. I don't know if it's the excess of things that people have that they're not really grateful. You know, so they're just kind of like a bunch of spoiled kids doing, you know, what they want to do, and it's just, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully it's all for the good. Because I always believe that no matter what, no matter how bad things get, there's always a light at the end of that tunnel, and something good always comes out of the bad.
Rock, have you noticed any like differences in the last, I don't know, 20 years of trans identity and people within the trans community or identifying as trans? Because you said earlier that before it was like, okay, an FTM was unheard of, right? That was just unheard of back in the day when you transitioned. That they were telling you, no, we don't deal with that, you know. And you said that it was like 42-year-old, you know, men cross-dressing. And now there's been this recent, like, just mass, like, I don't know what's happened, but it's like a young person movement that, you know, like kids, especially young girls, young teens, you know, that started to identify as transgender. And now all of a sudden there's so many people detransitioning now that, you know, they say, oh, the numbers are going to keep growing and keep growing. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective as a long time, you know, having been in the GNL and now the LGBTQIA plus, what are your views and what are your thoughts on this?
Well, you know, sometimes a lot of information doesn't give a lot of education, right? So if I turn to everything on the internet and every group, I couldn't get a consensus on anything. You know, that I think people are confusing their opinion with someone else's right. Right? So I can have an opinion about how someone chooses to dress or live their life, but I don't have a right to tell them how to do that. And, you know, people who detransition, who knows what cost they paid? You know, maybe there was a medical condition. Maybe the cost of losing family and friends became the greater burden, right? I don't know. And, you know, to be a young person nowadays, it must be really daunting because going through puberty is hell enough just in and of itself, cross, you know, culturally, cross globally. And to find out who I am during the middle of all that, boy, it sure does depend on where I live on this planet. And it sure depends on the socioeconomic status that I was born into. And it really has a lot to do with what color I am, depending on where I live around the planet. I mean, there's a lot of um, time spent looking for how we're different, and I think we're just really alike in so many ways. You know, you look at an elderly couple, traditionally, men, you know, those born male of sex tend to look very much female of sex in their latter years, and vice versa. I don't care what your culture is or how you lived your life. Guess what? You're probably going to get some chin hairs if you're a lady.
Yeah.
And if you're a guy, your voice is going to soften so much that someone is going to call you ma'am in the grocery store, no matter what you have. You know, one of the struggles I used to have when someone would say, thank you, man. I said, like, did they say thank you, man, or thank you, ma'am? Because I was ready to get offended one way or the other or congratulate him on some level. And then finally, I was like, they said thank you. Why not stop there?
Mhm.
Why look for the controversy? Why look for someone to reject or someone? And even if they do, why can't they have their opinion?
Mm.
We can agree to disagree. You don't have to like the choices I make with my family or myself. You know, there were you know, I had some women in California who were like, how could you abandon the dyke claws and go to the dark side, so to speak. And I said, well, maybe we all need good examples. Like, it wasn't men that hurt me. There were a couple of men that hurt me. There weren't women who hurt me. There were a couple of women who hurt me. And so to generalize the rest of everyone based on a couple of experiences, even though they had long-term impact on me, it might have taken a long time for me to process or to realize I'm never going to understand someone else's choice and have to be okay with, not understanding. Sometimes I just have to be okay with not understanding. Just I can still be respectful though, right? I can have a polar opposite opinion with someone and I can still respect their right. If one parent and child chooses to transition or not transition, or even, children may detransition. There may be a period of time where they trial. I mean, it's, in juvenile periods of time, we're all transitioning. Our brains are growing astronomically fast. Our hormones are like out of control. Now go ahead and mix some chemical addiction or drug addiction or alcohol addiction or adrenaline addiction through gaming. I mean, there's so many things that take us away from each other. I think we really need to work on coming together wherever we can, even if we just agree that everyone deserves to be safe.
That's very true.
You
Very
know?
true. And something that people are missing in general, because there's so much infighting, even within the LGBTQIS, all the letters in the alphabet. There's a lot of, you know, incohesiveness. People argue all the time. And I think we're forgetting that we all put one pound leg on a time. We're all going to go from dust we came, dust we shall return, that kind of thing. And the time that we're here, we should be grateful and loving towards one another, even if we don't understand one another. That's so important. And and I think we're going to be humbled by the things that are happening in our world. I think whatever people believe in, Mother Earth, God, whatever it is that people believe in, we're going to be humbled in ways that we never thought we would be, because the earth changes, the things that are happening, even in our own species. All this gender confusion that we're seeing, I believe there's something behind it. Something is happening to make us feel this way. What it is exactly, I don't know. But I mean, we've never seen what we're seeing now, right now in the time that we're living. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, people like you and I coming out and giving permission through example that because someone says something doesn't make it so. I feel the way I feel and I believe the way I believe. I remember when the bathroom laws came out in the South and they were talking about ID. And I'm like, do you really want me in the girls' locker room? I mean, I would be fine and totally respectful. I would stay in my corner like I did in junior high and keep my eyes on the floor and wouldn't look up. You know, that, that's how I get through when I'm not sure. I want to cause no harm. Um, I think part of what we have is a lot of information and not a lot of inclusion. I think that what changes is for us to look for what we have in common. And the more I talk with people, eventually I always hear the words "me too." It might be at a certain point in my life, it might be about a certain relationship type or person that I have, it might be my own, inadequacies or my own suffering or my own self-depreciation I did when I was drinking and drugging, trying to escape the world. I think a lot of people are trying to escape, and we need more examples of how to stay.
Yeah.
How to make it good, how to make it nice, how to open the door for each other, regardless of who's on the other side of the door. That person who's like, oh, those homeless bums, they have no value. Well, that homeless bum might be saving your drug overdosing daughter later tonight. You better hope he's there with an Narcan, because she's not telling you what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of people who, if we can't live authentically, we live in duplicity. One way this way, one way that way. We're this way at work, we're this way, there's no happiness there. There's no happiness there.
There's like this real anti-trans movement going on right now within a lot of the conservative party, Christians that have gotten onto the train, gender critical people that have decided, a lot of feminists, to partner up and to basically come after the trans community in a way that, you know, they use words like groomer, they use words like mutilation of body parts, for castrating, you know, young people, all these trigger words that are used to incite, you know, and to rile up the base of people that would support those things, you know, of that the Conservative Party would want. What are your thoughts about those things? And, you know, like they just had a big rally in Nashville. Matt Walsh, he's gone completely anti-trans in everything that he's talking about these days. And everything that he brings about on his show is always talking about something anti-trans. And I was just wondering what your thoughts are on this, because I mean, in the past, I don't think that the trans community was really that like defensive and protective of itself. I think it just tried to stay, you know, kind of like lay low. And, you know, what are your thoughts? Like now you have people on the trans community that are being really loud and really obnoxious in a way, but then it's like fighting fire with fire. And I just don't think that that is going to ever resolve anything.
I think you're right. I mean, in the sense that, I mean, show me the trans community, first of all, because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. We have no president. There's no vice president. There's no delegates. There's no Congress. So it's a social movement. And social movements are the whim of public perception. And that changes all the time. There are a good number of people wherever I live who have no idea that I'm transgender. That's not the first thing I want people to notice about me. I want them to notice how I treat the people I love. Right? And so when it comes up, and it always does, someone says, I just found out so and so in my family is, you know, one of you. What should I do about it? And my response is always the same thing. I say, however you want the world to treat them that way next. And it kind of wakes people up. They're like, that's my daughter, that's my son. Even if I don't understand, I don't want them hurt. I'm just scared. And I think people who lash or react are filled with fear. They're afraid of what they don't know. You know, when I go into a grocery store, I go into a restaurant, you know, the guy and his family isn't stopping pointing at me saying that queer. Now, let it be pride, and maybe I got a rainbow thing going on. Who knows, right? You know, I'm on a day of celebration. And there are some people who are going to hate me for who I am. My job is not to get them to like me. My job is to get me to like me. So, you know, the best thing I can do in the political arena is live a good, kind life. It really all comes back to that. You know, I don't dabble in politics or religion or public opinion because it's not me. If I want to be a good member of the gender variant community, then let me be a good person and the rest will come out in the wash. You know, people of any persuasion, you know, every religion pressures members within its own religion. Every culture pressures members within its own culture, trying to create some kind of uniformity, if not conformity. But isn't it the outliers? Isn't it the ones who draw art the way they see it? Isn't it the ones who come outside of the box that come up with the new ideas that actually revolutionize life? You know, even Jesus Christ, I mean, he wasn't going out and, you know, hanging out with Congress members. He was with the bums and the hookers.
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not casting a stone at anyone else's persuasion or belief. If someone wants to talk to me who's gender variant or hates someone who's gender variant, I'm willing. Let me hear what they're afraid of. Let me be more open. Let me try to, understand their point of view. It's a struggle for me sometimes. But if I'm struggling, imagine how much they're struggling. Because I already know what it's like to be gender variant. They can't even fathom it. Her father, one time, when I had mentioned I got pregnant, went into shock and walked out of the room. He can't fathom me as female anything. Cannot. Our first argument, he calls me and says, Rock, look, women are more emotional. You've just got to be more patient. I said, look, I'm taking a walk, cooling down. I'm doing a good job here, Bob. Here's a man who can't fathom that side, and yet if you go into the Indian culture where you have a lot more gender diversity, right? There are some cultures that have 5 genders. One where when the eldest man dies, the oldest woman becomes the eldest man of the clan. I mean, there's a lot. We have a huge amount of diversity in our group. I think part of the challenge is how do we do it globally?
Yeah.
Right? There's gender variant kids in Sweden. Oh, there's gender variant kids who are Muslim. Oh, they can't be gender variant. Well, guess what? Whatever the culture is that says you can't, there's always going to be someone who is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
There's
true.
always going to
Yeah.
be someone who is. So let me have patience. For the people who are angry trying to shift kids and rock the political system, good. Let's have the conversations. Let's bring it to the table. Let's start to hear both sides. Sometimes, someone has to come out and say, I don't understand. And if the laws aren't protecting its members of its community, then the laws need to change. And that doesn't happen because everyone gets along.
Mhm.
That happens because the people who are being trod upon finally say, no, 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 no. Marriage is marriage. We all want to have the right to love who we love and spend the rest of our lives if we choose to. And marriage should not be based on someone's genitalia, right? It ought to be based on the relationship. And for how long were gender variant? I mean, I couldn't. Holy mackerel. I mean, in order to get my license in California, I had to prove that I was surgically altered. I had to prove I was surgically altered to change my license, to prove that I was willing. Who else? Some woman doesn't like the way she looks. She can have her breast lifted, her bottom dropped, but for some reason, my body's a different set of standards. A man wants to take female hormones for a while or not. I mean, I can't tell someone else how to walk their life. I've struggled at times with people who had done that to me. I don't appreciate it. It didn't feel good. So, let me try to be, you know, more open. See, I struggle with that sometimes, right? I come across people who are narrow-minded or bigoted or gosh, we've run into ageism. We've traveled the globe. She was asked if she was my staff in one country. This is the perception, right? If there's a someone age difference and difference, she must be my worker, right? And the guy says, he's trying to talk to me and deal with me. I said, oh, honey, if you want to make a sale, you got to talk to her. She controls all the money today. He was like, wait, what? Well, they hadn't seen anyone like us. They probably never met a gender variant couple who was interracial with an age difference in their culture ever. And I also have to go along with what their cultural expectations are. Now, I'm not going to have my wife walk behind me because that doesn't go in alignment with my belief system of how I need to treat my wife. But if you want me to take your shoes off, if I'm supposed to, speak to your women in a certain way, as long as it's loving and kind, I'm going to do that. When I'm in your house, I'm going to follow your rules. Right? Well, America, we don't have a lot of rules, and everyone's, kind of making it up on the fly. Corporations want you to think this is the rule for your hair product, your car company, your what have you, and then there's political and religious movements. This is what you need to be. This is how you need to be. I can't imagine being a young gender variant person today. how overwhelming to find someone who says me too. And yet we're all over the place. We just need some good bridge builders.
That's true.
That would solve a
There's
lot.
there's literally kids in Florida today who are less free, gender non-conforming kids, because of a ban that has been enacted and will be put into law next week by the Florida Medical Board, that's going to be banning any kind of gender affirming care given to anyone under the age of 18. And I can't tell you how heartbroken I am over that, because I mean, it doesn't speak to the lives of the children that actually are trans and that they would benefit like others have. Um, and it's really difficult because they flew in a bunch of outsiders, detransitioners to speak, and basically nobody from Florida that had like gender like positive experiences like with as either kids or as parents of these kids, they weren't able to speak because the meeting got cut short. And now, because of the words of a few, now it's going to be taken away from all. And it's just really unfortunate. And if that's the way the country wants to go, that's really unfortunate too, because that's going to be a lot of gender nonconforming kids who are going to be left out. Like, what do I do? How am I going to transition? And is this going to be something that they're going to enact for adults too? I mean, because that's really what I think, that's really where it's all heading towards, is for them to, I mean, just like the long, hard fought battle to get rid of Roe v. Wade, it's the same thing. Marriage, gay marriage, they want to dissolve it all, basically. Those people in power. What are your thoughts?
I think each generation gets a little too complacent on some level, right? When the bisexual movement started happening, people in the gay and the lesbian community were, intolerant of that. Intolerance is something, unfortunately, we have to expect, but not accept, right? I think one of the things that the youth has missed historically is the opportunity to have a voice through the vote. There are far too many people who are not registered to vote, and the people who traditionally have the power and the money, the elders in different communities, right? They've accumulated their life wealth, whatever that is, are making decisions on a group of people they don't know and probably have never met on some level, or don't have any intimate acquaintance with. To watch things change from, I remember when I went to one of the first pride parades in Rhode Island, they were throwing beer bottles at us. And this past year in my hometown, we had our first pride parade, and I got to be the guest speaker. Like, something that was unfathomable when we were growing up. That wasn't never going to happen. All the people who are in power will lose their power, whether it's through death or circumstance. That's the way it's going to be. And I think the conversations that the youth are having and the questions being asked are important. If I had been given the option at 13 to transition and never have another estrogen experience again, I would have jumped at the chance.
Yeah.
And it would have only cost me my 2 children and my grandchildren. So I don't know which way was the right way to go. If I had been given the support I had, they wouldn't exist. So I can't tell you. I can't tell you that. For me, I have regrets in both directions on some level, right? If I transitioned earlier or had the ability to transition, I could have been more me, but then that wouldn't have been who I am today. I would have never met me.
Yeah, I just think that the whole concept is having that choice and having the choice removed. And I think that's where we have the problem. It's that people want to make decisions for other people and tell them what's right and what's wrong, and based on their spiritual beliefs and based on their politics. And I think that's where we're walking in the danger zone, that other people want to tell people that you can't be you, that you should be this way versus that way. And I think that's where we're looking at, major problems, that those choices are being taken away, and that's pretty sad.
Well, and in the end, I mean, to be honest, most political choices are corporate driven.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to keep investing in the people. I think I'm backing the better horse.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we got to do.
Yeah.
I know it's late where you're at. I want to ask one more question. How are your children with your transition?
My daughter said, if you need to grow a mustache to be okay, I'm okay with that. And I said, no, let's get you into counseling. I can get some books. We can get you some support groups. She's like, no, really, I'm okay. If you need a mustache, I'm fine with that. And I hadn't even thought of getting a mustache. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? That was her perception. And she says, I love you for whoever you are. And, my son, when he had dated this girl, they were together for a while, a couple months, and he's out doing something. She says, whatever happened to his mom? I said, what? She said, whatever happened to his mom? He won't talk about his mom. I said, really? She goes, yeah, you're all he talks about. I said, oh, okay. So she leaves, and I go to my son. I said, dude, you killed me? He said, no, man, you're a man now. I want to respect you as a man. That's like, how awesome is that? My granddaughter marched in the Pride Parade with us.
That's beautiful.
Just, wow, man, I have a great life. I have a
You do.
great
That's
life.
beautiful.
You're very blessed.
You are very blessed.
Thank you
I
both,
wish
and thank
I
you for having
had
us.
that opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. I mean, beautiful couple, you're the living proof that trans people can be happy. It's like we're living our truth, and people don't understand it, and maybe they need to start understanding us a little bit more instead of judging us so much, because we all put one leg at a time in our pants, and we all bleed the same, and it's, instead of finding our differences, we need to learn to find our sameness and come from a place of love.
Yes.
Well, thank you both very much for your
else?
time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to say before we end the interview? Any advice for the youth or people?
Advice for the youth. Fight for your right to be who you are. Don't let anyone tell you not to be you. Fight for the advice for the middle age. Spend time with your elders while you have them. You'll miss them when they're gone. Advice for the elders. Let's find each other and go for coffee. We have a lot to share.
That's very good.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
All righty. Have a good night. Thank you, guys. All right, guys. Catch you next week. Thank you so much thank you. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. Love you. But remember to always love yourselves too. Bye-bye.